Happy Wednesday, y'all. Welcome to another installment of Reezy Scorecard. Today, we're looking at Roy Jones Jr. versus Antonio Tarver 1. Let me get this out of the way straight away. Roy Jones is probably my favorite fighter of all time. I was born in 1993, so in my lifetime, I ranked Jones number one of the fighters in my lifetime. I put him above Mayweather. I put him above Pacquiao. I put him above Andre Ward, who I also regard pretty highly. So he's my favorite fighter. I also rank him higher on the all-time great list than all of the other contemporary fighters of my generation. So let's get that out of the way straight away. But looking at the fight, this is actually a very easy fight to score. I had this fight for Roy Jones 116 to 112. I almost never have the same scorecards as the judges for the TV stations, but in this case, I actually had the same exact scorecard as Harold Letterman. And it's actually just really easy to score because the rounds where Tarver gets Jones on the ropes for more than half of the round, he wins. And in the rounds where Jones keeps it in the middle of the ring for more than half the round, he wins because Tarver is completely inactive when Jones has it in the middle of the ring. And then Jones just looks super vulnerable when Tarver has him on the ropes. This is what I call a prisoner of the moment robbery because there's some people at the time said it was a robbery. And I really just think it's because Jones looked so good before this fight, especially in his last fight, beating John Ruiz for a heavyweight title. And, you know, nobody saw Tarver being this close. And the HBO broadcast, they say Jones was an 8-1 favorite. So I think there's just some shock and awe to Tarver standing up to Roy Jones like this that made people think it's a robbery. The crowd actually chants bullshit, bullshit, bullshit after Jones gets the decision. But this is a pretty clear, close but clear decision for Jones. And so let's break it down one by one. I have it 8-4 for Jones. And let's start with round one. Clear Tarver round. Jones wins most of the round with his one-off right hands. He's keeping it in the middle of the ring, and he's just pot shotting. He's throwing the right hand. He's throwing the right hand. But in the last 30 seconds, Tarver gets him on the ropes. He flurries, and he's landing the straight left hand at will. And I would say in those 30 seconds, he does more. He doesn't hurt Jones. He stuns Jones, but he does more in those 30 seconds that he wins than Jones did in the first 2.5 minutes. So we'll say that's a clear round one for Tarver. Round two, another clear Tarver round. So Tarver sweeps the first two, 2018 on my card after two. And two is sort of like a feeling out round. It's like a first round. If you watch round two of this fight, it looks like the first round of most championship or high level fights. Every time Jones goes to the ropes, Tarver just beats him up, and Jones looks so vulnerable on the ropes. And Tarver is just throwing to the body. And then once Jones puts the hands down, he's throwing that straight left hand to the head. And he's getting through almost every time he throws it, banging with both hands, getting through repeatedly. After two, Tarver 20-18. And then Jones comes back strong in round three. He wins this one clear. A lot of posturing from both guys, a lot of feinting. But this suits Jones because if it's in the middle of the ring and nobody's throwing, then that just lets Jones pick his shots. And he's just getting through every time with the right hand. And this round three, round four, and round five are almost a mirror image. And it just starts a trend of Jones picking his shots and looking for that like right hand hook that he's almost throwing. Like most guys would throw a jab, but he's so quick that he's coming in with that right hand hook. And he's landing it, and he starts getting in a couple left hooks to the body. So definitely a clear Jones round. And so after three, 29-28 Tarver, Jones coming on strong. And Jones wins the fourth, and he dominates most of the fourth because he's keeping it in the ring. He's landing the one-off right hooks. And then in the last 30 seconds, Tarver flurries. And this is round four, and then I think round 12 are kind of microcosms of the fight because Tarver, when he flurries, looks so good, and Jones looks so vulnerable. Probably, a reason for that is that he had dropped down from heavyweight. He had lost at least 25 pounds for this fight, and he just looks so vulnerable every time he's on the ropes. But I can't in good faith give a round like round four to Tarver just because Jones dominates the round. He gets on the ropes. He gets caught for a little bit, but I'm holding 2 minutes and 45 seconds of what Jones did over 15 seconds of what Tarver did. Round five, another clear Jones round. Jones picking his shots, mean right hooks to the head and body. It's a boxing lesson because Tarver is throwing the straight left and he's missing it badly. This round 5 is, something coaches should show to amateur boxers, just because Jones is making Tarver miss so badly this round, and he's picking his shots. He's not super active, but when he's throwing, he's landing, and it's really a boxing lesson. So after round 5, 48-47, 3-2 for Jones, and round 6 for Jones too. And that's just, Jones gets on the ropes a couple of times this round, and you almost expect Tarver to attack, but I didn't see it. But Tarver must have got hit with something because he's tentative. He's scared to throw his left hand even when Jones is on the ropes. He's letting Jones pick his shots. If you watch the HBO broadcast, you can hear Buddy McGirt, his trainer, just begging him to throw shots. You're not doing anything when you have him on the ropes. But he does start to kind of find his range with the jab, and you start to think, okay, maybe there's something here. He doesn't look done after then round 6. I give this one to Jones. I have Jones up 4-2, but you see Tarver kind of finding his range with the jab, and you think, okay, maybe there's something to this. Let's see what happens. And so in round 7, I give it to Jones again because Tarver has his moments. Every time he gets Jones on the ropes, he's bullying him. But Jones is dominating the middle of the ring. And the best punch of the fight is landed in round 7 by Jones. It's a straight right hand that just clips Tarver on the chin. And basically, once I saw that punch land, I knew I was giving that one to Jones. That could have been a Tarver round, so we could say Jones stole it. So I scored that one for Jones close. And at this point, have it 5-2 for Jones. Round 8, after round 5, round 6, round 5, round 4, round 3, 4 straight rounds for Jones. Round 7, so 5 straight rounds for Jones. Round 8, I do score for Tarver, and Roy does more of the same for the first half. He's picking his shots. He's throwing the right hooks when they're available. But for a huge, he basically gives up this round. He lets Tarver push him to the ropes for at least a minute, maybe longer, and Tarver just beats him up on the ropes. Jones looks out of sorts, and it's so crazy because all these rounds are so clear, but when Tarver looks good, and I think this maybe leads to the perception of a robbery, but when Tarver looks good, he looks really good. And not just that, but Jones looks so vulnerable. And so round 8, it's one of those rounds where you can kind of see the shades of the end of the great Roy Jones's career, because he looks really bad in this round. And this is, if you were looking for where did the downfall of Roy Jones type thing start, I think you could look at round 8. He looks really vulnerable in this round. But having said that, he does come back and win round 9. I scored this one close for Jones, 10-9. He's leaping in and he's throwing jabs. Roy, throughout his career, I wouldn't say he's not much of a jabber because he's a beautiful jab, but he's an inconsistent jabber. So sometimes he just goes straight to the right hand. But this round, he's leaping in, he's throwing some jabs, hard right hands to the head and to the body. And those are the kind of body shots. The right hands he's throwing to the body, the right hooks, the straight right hands, they're the kind where you can hear it in the crowd, and you can hear the crowd, ooh, ah, because they're hard body shots, and you can hear them. They're good body shots. Of course, Tarver, he flurries at the end of the round, but it's just not enough because Roy spent 2 minutes, 15 seconds beating him up. Tarver flurries for a little, they get in their little clinch, and then that's the end of the round. And you have to give it to Jones. I put close, but some of these I put close, but they're close but clear rounds. Jones clearly won that round. Tarver comes back in the 10th, and he wins this round, and it's like the 9th round, but Tarver hurts Jones. And I think that's the difference, because Jones basically wins 2 minutes of this round, but he hurts Jones badly with a straight left hand at the beginning of the round. And even so, Jones becomes so active in the middle of the round that I wanted to score it for him. But then Tarver does his flurry at the end of the round like he does in the previous rounds. And that swayed it to me to give it to Tarver close because he had already hurt him at the beginning of the round. He lost the middle. Then he flurries at the end, and he's landing a bunch of those. He's landing the straight left. So I scored round 10 for Tarver. Round 11 and round 11 and round 12, just get it out of the way right here. I scored for Jones. Round 11, Jones has got a little flickering light here. Round 11, Jones is landing combos for the first time in the fight. And this is the first time, I would say, in the fight that Jones, instead of just looking vulnerable going to the ropes, he starts using angles. And so when Tarver tries to push him into the ropes, he circles to his left or he circles to the right, and he gets off the ropes, and he doesn't look vulnerable. He doesn't look like he did in round 8. He's using angles. He's getting off the ropes. So there's a brief Tarver flurry at the end of this round, but Jones has already looked so good during the course of it that it's just rinse and repeat, where so many of these rounds, Tarver flurries at the end, but Jones has already won the round. Then round 12, I scored for Jones, and I scored it clear because both men had their moments, but Jones, again, is throwing and landing throughout the round. Tarver's only being effective when he flurries, when Jones is on the ropes. So it's another clear Jones round. At the end, I scored this one 116 to 112 for Jones. It's absolutely not a robbery. These rounds are so clear cut. I didn't have a single extremely close round. And I do think there's foreshadowing to the end of Jones's career. Round 8, especially, he looks vulnerable, but this isn't even, it's a competitive fight, but it's not even that close of a fight, because if you look at the rounds Jones won, which I have 12, 11, 9, well, I'll do it from the other side. I have Jones winning 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And after he wins those, he kind of asserts his dominance. He asserts that I'm going to win this fight. I'm in charge in this fight. Because there's a whole different feel. Because when Tarver comes out and wins the first 2 rounds, it's like, whoa, well, what do you got here, Tarver? But when Jones wins 5 straight rounds, after that, there's kind of a sense of inevitability that Jones is going to win this fight. So he comes out, he wins 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Some of them close, some of them clear, but all pretty much Jones rounds from a reasonable judge's standpoint. So he wins those. Then I have him winning the 9th, and I have him finishing strong, winning the 11th and 12th. For a normal fighter, there's not much more you could ask of them here, but since it's Roy Jones and since he had dominated his competition at this point, there's this narrative that Tarver won this fight. Tarver didn't come close to winning this fight. This is a clear Jones victory. Of course, we know Tarver brutally knocks him out in the second fight. He basically ends his career, because after Tarver knocks him out in the second fight, and then, of course, decisions him later in the third fight, that's basically the end of Roy Jones's career. And so you do still give Tarver credit as the man who ended Jones's career. But in this fight, it's a clear Jones victory, 116 to 112 Jones, 8-4 for Jones. All the scorecards that favor Jones, 117, 111, 116, 112, I think they're reasonable. 114, 114 from Jerry Roth, a draw. I don't agree with that at all. Like I said, I had the same exact scorecard as Harold Letterman. I think most reasonable boxing fans probably had it somewhere along those lines, 116 to 112, 117, 111 is a little high, but probably still fair. 115, 113 is a little too close for me. So clear Jones victory. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and tune in next week. We're going to cover De La Hoya versus Trinidad, one of the most controversial fights of all time.